Disclosure controls, internal controls. What's the difference today on Zippy Point? I'm Brock Romanek. I'm a big fan of yous. So I remember way back after Sarbanes was enacted and Section 404 of that act gradually became the centerpiece of attention. You would hear all sorts of panelists at the conferences try to describe the difference between disclosure controls and internal controls. And they would always start out by saying that it was like a Venn diagram, and they would show that there's an intersection where the two would overlap. My guess is that one person said that at a conference and then others quickly followed, because it's not really accurate. Internal controls is mostly a subset of disclosure controls. There might be a little bit of internal controls outside the bubble of disclosure controls, but it's not a whole lot. In fact, companies have the burden of proof to show that some part of their internal controls is not part of disclosure controls. So if your internal controls have a significant deficiency, a material weakness, you likely have a problem with your disclosure controls too. Now, disclosure controls certainly is broader than internal controls. You might have a problem with filing something with the SEC on time that isn't related to internal controls. That's solely a disclosure controls deficiency. So as I explained in my Vid-Guide about internal controls over financial reporting, a link to which is beneath this video, the disclosure about internal controls is elicited by item 308 of Regulation SK about how effective your internal controls over reporting is. And that disclosure is just quite a bit different than that elicited by item 307 of Regulation SK for disclosure controls. So look at that Vid-Guide to learn more about internal control disclosures. Both the 307 and 308 disclosures are made in the Form 10-K. Item 9A in Part 2 of Form 10-K refers to items 307 and 308 of Regulation SK. So let me explain what this item 307 disclosure looks like. Disclosure controls includes all controls relating to the preparation of Exchange Act reports, your 10-Ks, your 10-Qs, your 8-Ks, and other documents filed in a timely manner. Rules 13A15E and Rule 15D15E defines what disclosure controls are. Recorded, processed, summarized, and reported within the time period specified. It's the bubbling up of information to senior management so you can make fulsome disclosure as required on a timely basis with the SEC. Item 307 requires disclosure of the CEO and CFO conclusions over the effectiveness of a company's disclosure controls. When there are no problems, the disclosure is a 1 or 2 paragraph straightforward disclosure. So let's look at this example from Microsoft's 10-K. It talks about under the supervision and the participation of our management, including the CEO and CFO, we have evaluated the effectiveness. And then our disclosure controls are effective as of the end of the period covered by this report. Now, in comparison, let's look at Walt Disney's 10-K, their disclosure. We have established disclosure controls to ensure information is made known to the people who certify and other senior managers and the board as appropriate based on an evaluation as of this specific date, September 20th, 2019. Our disclosure controls are effective. So these are both saying the same thing, but in slightly different ways. The disclosure in a 10-K has to be either or. Either the disclosure controls are effective or you have a material deficiency. You can't state that our disclosure controls are effective except for this specific problem. You can't add a qualifier. If you do have a material deficiency in your disclosure controls, you have to disclose the nature of it, how you're addressing it, what are your remediation plans, when do you expect to fix it, and what are you doing to shore up your processes in the meantime? What are your mitigation efforts? So here's a 10-K with this kind of disclosure. No matter how well designed, we can only provide reasonable assurance, and we have effective disclosure controls at that reasonable assurance level. So this memo from Morrison & Foerster indicates that this type of disclosure might draw a comment from the CorpFin staff if your 10-K is pulled for review. So if you want to avoid that comment, don't make that kind of disclosure. This other commentary from that same Morrison & Foerster memo indicates that the SEC staff may comment if you disclose part of the definition of disclosure controls, but not the entire definition. The CorpFin staff will have you add in the entire definition to your 10-K. For more about Form 10-K, go to zippypoint.com or search YouTube with the hashtags #10K, #ZippyPoint.